People say betrayal always leaves clues. But sometimes you miss the signs, not because you're blind, but because you've spent your whole life pretending you're not being pushed aside. My brother Jake was born when I was 8. From the moment he arrived, he became the son our parents orbited around. I didn't understand it at first, how subtle it was, how complete. But by the time I hit middle school, the message was clear. I was the prototype. He was the polished version. I grew up in suburban Boston. Our parents, Robert and Sarah, weren't cruel. They didn't hit us. They weren't loud. They just chose him. Every time. I remember the 6th grade science fair. I spent months building a model of solar system dynamics, full-scale orbits, calculations, and moving planets. First prize. A special commendation for mathematical precision. My parents weren't there. Jake had t-ball practice. Not a game. Not a playoff. Just practice. The walls of our living room were covered in Jake's participation ribbons. My science trophy? Sat on the mantel for a week, untouched, before disappearing into a box in the basement. I got straight A's. Jake got CS. They praised his effort and told me not to make him feel bad. They gave him a new car at 16. To build confidence. I got a part-time job and paid for my clothes. Graduation should have been different. I was valedictorian. Got a scholarship to MIT. But at the ceremony, my parents spent most of it filming Jake, who was 10, dancing in the stands out of boredom. I still remember standing at the podium, announcing my future plans, and hearing nothing but my mom whispering about Jake maybe making the starting team next season. That was the moment I realized I was never going to be enough. I left for college with no fanfare. Jake had a baseball game the day I moved into MIT, so my parents left early. Didn't even help unpack. Just said, "You'll be fine." And I was. College changed everything. For the first time, I wasn't Jake's shadow. I was evaluated on my own. I found a passion for software architecture. I graduated with honors. My thesis caught the attention of 5 major firms before I even walked the stage. I chose a job in Boston. Part of me still wanted to be close, hoping things might change. They didn't. While I rose through my career, my parents helped Jake pick a 3rd college major. He drifted through degrees while they paid the bills. By the time I was 28, I was leading a development team. Youngest senior developer in the company's history. When I told them, my dad said, "That's nice. Did you hear Jake might transfer to UCLA?" Then I met Amy. We met at a coffee shop near my office. She was studying to be a teacher, working part-time behind the counter. I didn't notice her notes on my coffee cups until she finally asked me out herself. Our first date lasted 6 hours. We talked about everything. Family. Dreams. Regrets. When I told her how my parents treated me, she didn't flinch. She said, "They have no idea what they're missing." For the first time, I felt like someone saw me. The next year was a dream. We explored bookstores on weekends. Took weekend trips. She encouraged me to apply for a big promotion, helped me prep, and cried when I got it. When I proposed, she said yes through tears. We planned a small wedding. Simple. Honest. Ours. My parents spent the reception showing relatives Jake's job interview text from California. That should have been the red flag. But Amy just laughed it off and said, "They're just excited for him. Don't let it ruin the day." And I didn't. But maybe I should have. The first year of marriage was golden. Amy and I moved into a 2-bedroom condo just outside Cambridge. It wasn't flashy, but it was ours. Hardwood floors, shelves filled with books instead of decorations, a mismatched kitchen set we found at a flea market. She brought warmth. I brought stability. Together it worked. We had routines. Tuesdays were pasta nights. On Fridays we tried new takeout. Sunday mornings meant coffee in bed and crossword puzzles in the sunroom. It was quiet joy, the kind no one claps for but everyone secretly wants. Work was intense. My team had just landed a high-profile client, and I was logging 60-hour weeks. But I didn't mind. I'd finally built something that made the chaos feel worth it. And coming home to Amy made the rest fade. My parents kept their distance, more than usual, actually. They didn't call much. When we invited them for dinner, they'd cancel. My dad said they were giving us space. My mom would mumble something about Jake going through some things. I didn't push. Then Jake came back. Out of nowhere. After 3 failed majors, 2 job changes, and 1 very expensive self-discovery tour in Europe, he landed back in Boston. No announcement. Just a text from my dad. Jake's moving back. Might need a place to crash while he figures things out. Amy saw the message on my phone while we were cooking. She raised an eyebrow. Are they asking or telling? Telling, I said. They always tell. I didn't say yes right away. Amy said it was up to me. I thought about the years of being overlooked. Of Jake being bailed out of everything, while I worked through college debt and 80-hour work weeks without help. I thought about the wedding, the science fair, the trophy in the basement. But then I thought about what Amy would do, and I said yes. Jake moved in the following weekend. Just a mattress, a suitcase, and a Bluetooth speaker that never seemed to turn off. He smiled like nothing had ever been tense between us. You've got a great setup here, man. We've worked hard for it. I said. Yeah? I'll only be here a few weeks. Those few weeks turned into 2 months. Then 4. He didn't pay rent. He didn't cook. He didn't clean. But he was charming. Always joking. Always full of stories. My parents visited more in those months than they had in the last 3 years. Each time, the same thing. Jake's doing his best. He just needs time. And each time, I'd bite my tongue. Because what else could I do? Amy was patient at first. She gave him space. Let him use our second bedroom, even after he left clothes all over the floor. Smiled when he borrowed her car, just for errands. Laughed politely when he made dumb jokes over dinner. But I could see her shifting. She started going to bed earlier. Stopped joining us for wine after dinner. Avoided the living room when Jake was around. I asked her one night, after he left for the gym. Is he bothering you? She hesitated. Then said, he just doesn't seem to have boundaries. He never did. I know. But this is different now. This is our space. I nodded. I told her I'd talk to him. But I didn't. Because I was tired. Because I wanted to believe it would pass. Because part of me was still afraid of what would happen if I forced Jake out, not to him, but to how my parents would see me. So I said nothing. And the silence grew teeth. One night, I came home late. Amy was in the kitchen, tense, shoulders stiff. Jake was sitting at the counter, shirtless, drinking a beer. They weren't touching. They weren't even close. But the air was off. Amy looked up, startled. You're home early. Jake just smirked. I wanted to surprise her with dinner. But we ran out of pasta. My eyes landed on the empty box on the counter. It was Tuesday. I didn't say a word. Amy didn't sleep that night. Neither did I. And somewhere between the silence and the ceiling fan, I started to wonder. Had I left the door open too long? Jake left the next week. Not because I forced him. Not because he found a job. Because Amy told me, quietly, and without ceremony, that if he stayed, she wouldn't. We were eating breakfast in silence. She set her fork down and said, I can't share this house with someone who treats it like a stage. I looked up. He said something to you, didn't he? Not directly. But you can feel it, right? The way he looks at me. Like it's a game. Like I'm a prize. I nodded. I'll handle it. I told Jake that night. He was lounging on the couch, watching a basketball game, drinking out of one of my mugs. You need to find another place. He didn't argue. Didn't even flinch. He just shrugged. Figured this was coming. You've had time. Sure. I'll crash with some friends. He got up, stretched, and grabbed his phone. No hard feelings, right? I didn't answer. Because the way he said it, that casual tone, the lack of concern, told me everything I needed to know. Jake never felt the consequences. Not from my parents. Not from me. And now, I wasn't even sure he felt them from Amy. After he left, things felt lighter. Amy started smiling again. She returned to the sunroom in the mornings, crossword in one hand, coffee in the other. We even joked about turning the second bedroom into an office. But something was off. Something in her laugh, like it arrived late. Something in her touch, like she was reaching through glass. One night, we lay in bed, and I asked, "Are you okay?" She hesitated. Then said, "I want to be." That should have been enough to make me ask more. But I didn't. Because I wanted to believe we were repairing. Because I didn't want to face the question I was starting to ask myself in secret. Did something happen between them? It was a Tuesday when I found out. 3 weeks after Jake left. I came home early, a cancelled meeting and a rare half-day. I'd stopped to pick up Amy's favorite pastries from the bakery near her old job. Figured we could eat them on the balcony, like we used to. I opened the front door quietly. Habit. And then I heard it. Her voice. On the phone. Low. Intimate. "I miss you too. But he's trying. I don't know what to do." I didn't breathe. Didn't move. Just stood there, in the doorway, holding a box of chocolate croissants. She didn't hear me. She walked through the kitchen with her phone pressed to her ear, eyes cast down. "You left too fast. He didn't give me time. I can't talk about this now." I stepped forward. She turned. Froze. Everything in her face crumbled in a second. "Ethan." I didn't yell. Didn't drop the box. I just said, "Was that Jake?" She didn't answer. Which was, of course, the answer. That night we didn't fight. I didn't give her the performance of betrayal she might have expected. I sat down. Asked her to talk. And she did. It started 3 months earlier. When Jake had moved in. When I was pulling 70-hour weeks, trying to close a contract that would stabilize my department's funding. They'd been alone a lot. He was charming. She was lonely. And it started with conversations. Then emotional support. Then touches that felt like accidents, until they weren't. She said they only slept together twice. Said it felt like a dream. Said she didn't want to lose me. I asked her when she planned to tell me. She looked down and whispered. "I wasn't. I filed for divorce that week. Didn't tell my parents. Didn't tell Jake. Didn't even ask Amy to leave." She packed her bags quietly. Left her key on the counter. And walked out like she'd never belonged there in the first place. I sat in that condo, the one we built together, and let the silence breathe. Not because I forgave anything. But because for the first time, there was no one left to lie to me. I waited 2 weeks before telling them. Part of me wanted space. Part of me wanted them to ask. But mostly, I needed to see if they'd even notice Amy was gone. They didn't. Not once. No. "How's she doing?" No. "We haven't seen her in a while." Just the usual small talk from my mother, and passive observations from my dad about how Jake's job hunt is picking up. So I told them. Over dinner. Calmly. Directly. "Amy and I are getting divorced." My mom blinked. "What? Why?" "Because she cheated on me," I said. "With Jake." The silence stretched. My father set his fork down slowly. My mother's mouth opened, then closed. And then she said the single worst sentence I've ever heard in my life. "Are you sure it was physical?" Like that somehow made it better. Like emotional betrayal would have been easier to forgive, as if anything could soften the weight of hearing your wife whisper, "I miss you too," into a phone that wasn't yours. "Yes," I said. "I'm sure." My father cleared his throat. "You know, Jake, he doesn't always think things through. He's impulsive." "He was living in my house," I said. "Eating my food. Sleeping under my roof." Still, my mother cut in. "It takes two people." I looked at her. "That's your takeaway?" She didn't meet my eyes. They never apologized. Not for Jake. Not for defending him. Not for watching my life fall apart and offering nothing but excuses and evasions. They didn't ask how I was doing. They didn't ask what I needed. They didn't ask if I was okay living alone in a condo that still smelled like her shampoo. Instead, my father leaned back and said, "You've always been the mature one. Maybe this is a chance to prove it again." I almost laughed. But I didn't. Because it wasn't funny. It was tragic. A few days later, I got a call. "Jake. He didn't even sound nervous. Hey. Mom said, you're upset? I didn't respond. Look, man. I didn't plan for it to happen. I didn't go after her. It just did. You slept with my wife. Yeah, well. You were never really around. I hung up. That night, my mother called. He's trying, Ethan. To do what? I asked. To reach out. To make peace. There is no peace. You're brothers. That bond matters. He ended that bond when he crossed the line. You're both hurting. Maybe forgiveness is. I cut her off. Forgiveness is earned. He hasn't even said the words. She paused. Then, in a tone soaked in guilt-dodging logic. Jake's always needed more support than you. You've always been stronger. That line broke something clean in me. Because it confirmed what I'd known since I was 10 years old, standing with a science trophy in a quiet house. They didn't need me to be okay. They expected it. So when I wasn't okay, they didn't know what to do with me. I stopped taking their calls. Ignored Jake's texts. They tried a few more times, voicemails layered with empty warmth. We're worried about you. Jake's making progress. Family is all we have. No. Family is what you protect. What do you show up for? What you don't sell out because one child is louder, needier, or more charming than the other. I didn't reply. Not when they left a message asking if I'd come to Jake's birthday dinner. Not when they sent a group photo of everyone smiling around a cake, like the cracks hadn't spread across everything. Not when my father finally wrote a letter that said, "You've punished all of us long enough." I didn't respond. Because I wasn't punishing anyone. I was just finally living like the son they always treated me as. Separate. And in some way, finally, that felt honest. I went no contact after the birthday photo. Blocked their numbers. Muted the group thread. Stopped answering the door when my mom started leaving baked goods outside, like that would undo everything. It wasn't a protest. It was preservation. Because what do you do when the people who raised you tell you, through words and inaction, that the person who burned your life down still matters more than the person who built it? You stop showing up. You stop giving them access. 6 months passed. Work kept me sane. Friends kept me laughing. Therapy kept me from collapsing. I started running. Started painting again. Started remembering what it felt like to exist without having to perform gratitude for scraps. And then, just when I thought I was out of the storm, the letter came. Certified mail. Law firm I didn't recognize. Inside, a formal notice regarding the transfer of family estate assets. My parents had finalized a restructuring of their will and wanted to notify me of the changes. I read the words twice. Then again. It was buried in legal phrasing, but the message was clear. They'd moved the entire estate, house, pension, investment portfolio, into a trust. Jake was the sole beneficiary. I wasn't just left out. I was erased. No explanation. No note. Just a clause that read, "We have decided this is in the best interest of the family's future." Their future. Not mine. I didn't scream. Didn't cry. I called my lawyer. Sent her the documents. She confirmed what I already suspected. It was airtight. Legal. Strategically set up to avoid contestation. They'd been planning this quietly for over a year. Probably while Jake was still sleeping under my roof. The next week, I drove to their house. Didn't call ahead. Didn't ring the bell. I waited in the driveway until my father opened the garage. His face froze when he saw me. "Ethan. I read the will." He blinked. Then said, with the audacity of a man who had never apologized for anything, "We thought it was time. To cut me out of the family? To protect the estate. From me? From conflict." That word made me laugh. Not because it was funny, but because it confirmed, once again, who they saw when they looked at me. Not the son who got straight A's. Not the one who paid his way through college. Not the one who offered his home to the brother who ruined his marriage. Just a threat. A loose end. An inconvenient reminder of everything they'd rather forget. I said one thing before I left. "I hope, when you're gone, he remembers to visit. Because I won't." And I meant it. 2 days later, Jake emailed me. Not a call. Not a letter. An email. I didn't ask for the estate. They offered. I was going to say no. I didn't reply. Because if he was going to say no, he would have. He had all the power, and none of the courage. I sat with that for a while. Then I wrote a letter. Not to them. To myself. Again. They made their choice. You survived it. You owe no explanations. No final confrontation. Just space and peace. That letter still sits on my desk. Framed. Not as a reminder of the pain, but as proof. You don't need to be part of a legacy to have one of your own. Years passed. The silence held. No surprise visits. No more voicemails. My parents got older. Jake found work in real estate, bouncing between agencies, never quite settling. I didn't know for sure. I didn't ask. I moved cities. Bought a new place. A clean space with no echoes in the walls. Rebuilt my life in full. I started a company with 2 partners. We landed our first $1 million contract in year 2. I hired smart. Stayed lean. Built culture without hierarchy or nepotism. In a small circle, I finally felt valued. I didn't post about it. Didn't send updates. If they heard about it, it wasn't from me. And I was okay with that. Then one afternoon, 3.5 years after that last driveway conversation, I got a message. Not from my parents. Not from Jake. From my father's accountant. Short. Formal. Your father is ill. Your presence is requested to discuss estate matters and medical power of attorney. I almost deleted it. Then I reread the last line. If no action is taken, your brother will retain full authority. That's when it hit me. They hadn't contacted me because something had changed. They contacted me because something had gone wrong. I replied once. That estate was transferred without me. Whatever comes with it, let him handle it. No greeting. No sign-off. Just the reality they built. 2 days later, a personal email from Jake landed in my inbox. It was long. Overwritten. A mixture of guilt, self-justification, and veiled pleading. I know things got messed up. I never meant to hurt you like that. But I don't think Dad is going to make it. He's asking about you. He included photos. Hospital room. Machines. A man who once called me the strong one, now hooked to lines and wires. For a second, something in me cracked. Not enough to reach out. But enough to sit still. Because grief doesn't wait for forgiveness to arrive. It just shows up. Whether or not you're ready. Still, I didn't go. Not because I hated him. Not because I wanted revenge. But because showing up now would have been for them, not for me. And I'd spent too long performing for people who never looked past the curtain. Jake sent one more message. This is your last chance. That was it. A threat dressed as family. And it made my decision easier. I didn't reply. A month later, I got the obituary. No note. No call. Just a local newspaper clipping, forwarded from a distant relative. No mention of me in the survived by list. Just, beloved husband to Sarah. Devoted father to Jake. My name wasn't there. I didn't exist in the final version of his story. And in a way, that was the cleanest truth he ever gave me. I didn't attend the funeral. Instead, I went to the coast. Stood at the edge of a cliff trail I used to hike in college. Pulled the letter I wrote to myself years ago from my coat pocket. Reread it. And this time, I didn't just believe the words. I knew them. Some legacies aren't meant to be inherited. They're meant to be left behind. After my father passed, the silence returned. But this time, it wasn't loaded. It wasn't waiting for a reply. It just was. No one from the family reached out. Not Jake. Not my mother. Not even with the excuse of condolences or logistics. And honestly, it was better that way. I didn't mourn the way people expected. No dramatic breakdowns. No nostalgia-laced photo albums. Just a quiet acknowledgement that the man who gave me his name never really wanted me to carry it forward, at least not in the way that counted. So I stopped trying. Instead, I poured everything into the company. We expanded to 3 cities. Hired over 40 people. Launched a mentorship program for first-gen college grads. the kind who'd been told they had to be twice as good just to be noticed. Every time I handed out a promotion letter, I made sure the room clapped for them. Because I remembered what it felt like when no one clapped for me. I started dating again. Carefully. No quick declarations. No rushed intimacy. Just conversations. Honesty. Boundaries. A woman named Talia entered my life slowly, without fanfare. She asked real questions. Waited for answers. Didn't try to fill the silences with pity or performative comfort. When I told her about my past, she didn't say, "I'm sorry," she said. "That explains the quiet strength." And then she stayed. My mother sent a letter a year after my father's passing. Handwritten. Short. "I miss you. I know I failed you. I hope you're doing okay." There was no return address. No phone number. Just her name. I kept it. Not because I wanted to forgive her, but because it was the first time she used the word fail. That alone felt heavier than any apology she could have drafted. I didn't write back. Not out of spite, but because the silence wasn't a punishment anymore. It was peace. Jake never contacted me again. From what I hear, the estate is slowly dissolving. Bad investments. Empty promises. Unpaid taxes. There's talk that he's trying to liquidate assets, but the house is tied up in court. The portfolio has bled out. He inherited everything. And turned it into dust. I drive past that old neighborhood sometimes. Not often. Not on purpose. But when I do, I slow down. Glance at the place where I once stood in the driveway, holding a father's silence in my chest like it was my fault. And I think, that boy deserved better. Not just from them. From me. So I gave him a future they never could. I gave him quiet mornings. Stability. A job where people said, "Thank you." A life that didn't wait for validation before moving forward. I gave him his name back, not as something borrowed from people who couldn't carry it, but as something built from scratch. And now? I don't want revenge. I don't want justice. I just want people to know this. You don't have to inherit pain to prove you survived it. You don't have to show up for people who only noticed you when you were useful. And you don't have to forgive them just to be free. You build your peace. Your table. Your name. And when they finally ask where you went, you let the silence answer.